I can hear you fine. Fantastic.
A tag team appreciation night that was supposed to be hosted by FTR. Of course, they didn't show up until like halfway through the show. And this week seems to have an interesting opinion from a lot of people as not being as good of a show as usual. What's up, everybody? Eric here from That's Wrestling. Thanks for tuning in to today's AEW Dynamite review show for August 12th, 2020. And if you are listening to this as a podcast, be sure to head over to the YouTube channel and hit subscribe over there because we do these shows live. So if you hit the bell notification as soon as I schedule a live stream, which I try to do as far ahead of time as possible, it will let you know when we're going live. AEW tends to be Thursday at 7 p.m. the night afterwards, though we do have a Saturday show coming up next week and then a couple Thursday shows sometime in September, so those will probably be moved around, so just keep an eye out on the channel and I will schedule those when we know when those are going to be taking place. And with me tonight, no, I'm not saying his name wrong again, it is Justin. How's it going, man?
Very, very good. I have a shower, I have AC, I am the happiest person in the world right now.
Yeah, so for those who listened to last week's show, I had to go solo because I didn't realize that he was still without power, and I'm like, where the heck is this guy? And so I decided I had to go solo, so left me high and dry, man. No, I'm just kidding.
Some people would argue it's better by yourself than with me, but you know, I'm still here.
All right, so overall, what did you think about this show? Because before we went on air, you said you had to catch up because you didn't even see last week's show until a couple days ago. So what did you think about this show in particular?
A little disjointed. Like, they don't do a bad show. Like, AEW is great, but everything was just better than average. And I guess I can't complain because that's a great thing and nowadays, but I have such a high opinion and such a high bar that AEW sets. It just didn't seem like they cleared it with really anything. There was good moments and there were even great moments, but I don't know, everything just felt disjointed, and especially we'll talk about the main event was just really sloppy. At the end of it, I didn't feel like I would for a show they built to for a little while now. It didn't feel like a built up show. It felt like just kind of a throwaway show almost.
Yeah, I'm curious how it's been going because they've been doing alternating live and then taping in the next week. The day after. So every other week has been taped and every other week has been live. So have the taped shows just been able to be better because they could tighten them up in post-production, time them out correctly, cut 30 seconds off here and there if they needed to, so they could fit the whole show into the time slot? Or is it just, this is just how it works and it just happens to be a coincidence that the taped shows seem to be the best ones versus the live shows?
I didn't even think about that. That's the good idea that with the tape shows, they probably can take out, or they can at least change maybe camera angles so they don't catch specific things, or I don't know. It's just that's a good way of thinking about it. But the timing on everything definitely fell off in this show. Not so much that things went over, but like things weren't. I don't think things were fitting into the puzzle like they were hoping it would, and because of that, some things felt rushed that made it just worse at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think one of the issues is AEW is such a dense show. Like there's like usually no wasted steps, there's no wasted movement, there's no wasted time. So when every second is important, it's hard to cut if you need to change on the fly, and that might be a little bit of an issue depending on how much they happen to be overrunning, which of course we had a bit of a view into that during the main event, because basically as soon as the finish happened, the show went off the air. It was, within 15 seconds or something like that. So maybe doing the tape shows has been advantageous because they can time them how they want. Was, now I can't even remember, was last week Moxley and Darby Allin?
Yep.
Okay, so it was last week. So it was That was a taped show, and they did actually have some more of that ran over that landed on social media. Moxley cut a promo right after, which would have been good to have it happen on television. Of course, they didn't show it on this episode either. So I don't know. I think they might just be trying to pack so much stuff into the time they're allotted that they just don't have the timing down that they need to, because they don't have the flexibility built in that other shows might.
I don't understand why they couldn't have made time for that promo. That promo was fantastic.
Right?
It seemed like they were building to an eventual, maybe not partnership, but an eventual like mutual respect. You know, I got your back, you got my back with Darby and with Moxley, but it was just such a, not necessarily a passing of the torch, but here is our guy. Darby Allin is going to be, maybe not this year, probably next year, but this is our guy. And for me to have, and I didn't even know about it. Like, again, I watched the show late. I watched it Monday. I didn't even know about that promo until today.
Right.
Like, I had to search for it on AEW's, oh no, I think it was actually on TNT's YouTube. And that's another thing with AEW. You can't find everything in one central location.
Yeah.
Some of it's on Being the Elite. Some of it's on AEW Wrestling. Some of it's on AEW on TNT. They need, if they're not going to put everything on TV, which is understandable, like you said, every second counts. Not everything we love can be on there. They need to have one central place. It can be Twitter, it can be Instagram, whatever they want, but I shouldn't have to search 3 different channels to get a full picture of what AEW is. That is a little tedious sometimes.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems is just how YouTube is laid out in general. If they drop everything in the one channel, like, so the AEW official channel is just bombarded with videos because they put up tons and tons of clips, and then obviously you have AEW Dark, you have the women's tag tournament going on, just like all these clips. As soon as like 2 days pass, like Dark is pushed down, 6 rows by the time you get to it, if you didn't watch it right away. So I don't know if they need to figure out some way to better categorize stuff, make better playlists, make the layout better on their YouTube channel, just so you can find stuff. Because I'm pretty sure that promo is on there, but it gets buried so quickly that it's going to be back, 8-10 rows by the time, if you just checked it out today from being posted last week.
Yeah, I had to go through I think 15 different AEW Dark matches, both in Spanish and in English, because they show the whole like hour long, and then you have each match, and then you have each match in Spanish, and then that AEW is just inundated with so much stuff. They should have one, if they're going to do it in Spanish, which I think is awesome. They should have their own channel for that.
Right.
Then if they're going to do, you can have different channels for different things, but, and maybe it's right, maybe it was on AEW's official one, but I had to find it eventually on the AEW on TNT, which is much simpler. It's just quick clips of the show,
right,
and everything else, and then from there you're good.
Or maybe, here's a novel thought, utilize your website to categorize all this stuff so you can find it so much easier.
There you go. That would be a wonderful idea.
They have the worst website for such a major thing. All right, so let's we'll talk about that enough for now. We can yap about that later. So the first thing I write is, so where's FTR? Aren't they supposed to be hosting this thing?
Right, you think they'd be the ones introducing the episode and been like, hey, today's Tag Team Appreciation Night. I forgot that they were hosting it until the whole bit with the Rock and Roll Express.
So we have Taz, JR, and Tony on commentary once again. No Excalibur. No news about what is happening with that. If it was Tony's call, if it is Excalibur's call, don't know. Anyways, starting off, we have the Young Bucks coming out, and right when they are about to step off the stage down towards the ring, a bunch of the Dark Order minions attack and beat them up for a little bit before Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, who are actually the opponents for the Young Bucks, come out. This match I thought was actually pretty fun. I'm surprised how fast-paced it was really early. Stu Grayson is just amazing. We have some high flying from Nick, of course. He gets a hot tag at one point and yells into the camera, best comeback in the business. So a little meta right there. Dark Order ends up setting Nick up for the fatality in the end, and Nick slips out of it and rolls up Uno for the win. This had them completely incensed because Matt was taken out. He was basically thrown down the entrance tunnel with a few Dark Order guys guarding him to keep him from coming, but he still managed to eke out the win. But all in all, I thought this was actually a pretty fun match. It was a good opener, and Stu Grayson, there was another thing that he did where Uno was standing near the ropes and Nick was behind him, and Stu Grayson stepped up onto the top rope, stepped onto Uno's shoulders, walked across Nick's shoulders, and jumped off and hit a Rana to Matt. I thought that was pretty crazy.
There's always at least a handful of innovative spots in AEW, and you can almost guarantee a Young Bucks match is going to have that. I did not see that one coming, though, at all. That was a really, really cool spot. Yeah,
the first time I have seen that spot before, actually, and it was the Flying Elvises back in 2001 in TNA.
Sonny Siaki, we were actually talking about them the other day off mic. Sonny Siaki, Jimmy Yang, and I still can't remember the third one, but I miss those guys off of TNA.
But I've seen this, episodes. But yeah, I've seen this spot before back in 2001, 2002 when the Flying Elvises did it. But overall, what do you think about this match?
I like the Young Bucks for being one of the best tag team, as I say later. They're not guaranteed to win a match. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if the Dark Order would have won this match at any point, because the Young Bucks have, and I've not lost so much in a bad way, but they are not guaranteed to win any match they're in. And I'll talk about this later. There are some people who, when you watch their matches, they're not going to lose. Like Jon Moxley last week, you knew he wasn't going to lose. You were watching it for, how good of a match it's going to be. I would have done a coin flip of who was going to win this match.
Yep.
And I even thought when they did the whole throwing Matt down the entrance and, the Dark Order blocking it, I thought that was such a creative finish. I mean, it backfired spectacularly on the Dark Order, but just in a kayfabe way, that was just a spectacular idea. Double team one, make one not be able to come in. I thought it was such a creative finish, and the fact that it just backfired on them spectacularly was even better.
Yeah, actually, there are a couple backfires on people in this show. One thing I actually liked during this match is Evil Uno did a lot of heel cheating tactics, trying to do stuff behind the ref's back. At one point, he took off his wrist tape and he looked like he was gonna try to choke one of the Bucks with it. And when the ref took it away and turned his back to throw it, out towards the ring keeper, the timekeeper where they usually throw the trash, he poked him in the eyes.
I like that. Yeah, it was really nice.
So I thought that was some good work from Evil Uno, because obviously he's not the high flyer and is not as flashy as Grayson. And I really like the simple heel tactics that people can use during the match. And this is kind of one of them, very similar to how MJF kind of did, heel tactics in his most recent matches, just trying to get the ref to turn their back and, poke them in the eyes or, rake their face or something like that. I think that's a good way to go.
I hope they do something for one of their pay-per-views or just something for the Dark Order where they take some of their being the elite clips, because just think of where they were at the end of last year to where they are now. We're 8 months into this year. I want them to just do that, almost a documentary, maybe 20-30 minutes for them of just their rise this year. Because I was thinking about that the other day when I was watching last week's episode. They've just come so far, even before Brody Lee came, which obviously he's jumped them into the stratosphere. But I would love for them to show just a documentary of how well they've done for 2020. They're one of the great things about this year in AEW so far.
Yeah, and some of the best stuff for the Dark Order has happened over on BTE, and none of it's made it to television. This is one of the things that has really bugged me about AEW since the start. There is stuff that happens on BTE that plays into the show, and of course we have all the other shoulder content, and they never do a recap. I mean, they could have simply just the first time where the Griff Garrison one where they think he's Jungleboy for the first time, that should have been shown on TV. Obviously they'd have to bleep it like crazy, but it would have given Brody Lee so much that, you know, he's trying really hard, but he's really hard on these guys as well, and he like, that was just like the best and should have been on there to help build the Dark, because really they get almost no character development on Dynamite. It's all been on BTE.
That's what I'm saying. I think if they do, and they have a few different, I would say more than a few, I would say probably about a dozen different characters they can do this with, whether it's using Dark, using BTE, using some of their Road to, when they do like Road to pay-per-views, they should make these documentaries, again, they don't have to be long, but just kind of giving us all that background information all in one video to show why so many people care about the Dark Order. Because we, you know, you and me and probably most everyone listening to this watches BTE. I don't think the average AEW fan, maybe they do, but I don't think everyone, at least who watches AEW, even knows what being the Elite is. So giving them a little bit to kind of be like, oh, this is why they're so good. Oh, this is where the paper comes from. You know, this is why Brody Lee throws paper. Like, giving them all those little inside jokes will have you care more about them. And if you care more about them, once we go back to live audiences, I would love to see the reaction they start to get from there.
Right, and that's something that AEW could easily do is, hey, such and such happened, we don't have time to show it on Dynamite, head over to our YouTube channel to see this. Or, you know, there's all these, if they can't fit it on TV because of whatever reason, though, a lot of the times it's like, okay, you can cut this out and put something else in its place. Pretty much every episode you can find something like that. But, you know, they did more promotion this week, that they actually had a promo for, hey, on YouTube on Monday is the women's tag tournament. On Tuesday is AEW Dark. And then next Wednesday, we're not going to be on TNT. It's going to be pushed to Saturday. We're going to show the first part of last year's All Out. And they had a advertisement for being the Elite as well. So it's like, okay, now they're trying to get that, some of that shoulder content out there and make it be a bit of a more prominent thing. But if they just take the important bits out of BTE, because there's lots of stuff on BTE that is nonsense that does not play into anything and isn't going to play into anything, but you can pull the stuff out. The Dark Order stuff a lot of the times could easily have been pulled out because it wasn't completely goofy and it actually built something up. You have the relationship of FTR and Hangman and the Bucks and Omega, so you have all that interplay as well that is important to the story, and I think would enhance the story and what's going on, but they just haven't. So I'd love to see them do, what you said. Hey, we put together a 20-minute package on the history of the Dark Order with some stuff that you haven't seen on television. You know, something.
I remember they did one of those in the beginning for AEW. This is going back when we didn't know whether Hangman was going to sign with AEW. Remember they did like the phone calls. Uh-huh. They did like all those little like teasers on BT for a good 2 months, saying, is the Cowboy going to sign with them? Is he going to go to Japan? And I love that. I love how they took those little things and helped build the buzz for AEW, and they're still doing that. There's still so many things, and we talked about it 2 weeks ago, how the whole, Kenny left the room with the Bucks. He's like, you know what? I love you guys, but I don't like you. Right. I still think about that. I still think, like, in their interactions, that's something that's in my mind. I'm like, I don't see this on TV. I literally had to watch a YouTube channel that's on, like, episode 200 or whatever to get that nuanced interaction between them, and I think that does such a good job of just that one line of explaining how the dynamic between Omega, Hangman, and the Bucks are. And so many people who don't watch it don't get just that little bit, and I think they're missing out. Even if they show that one clip, that's what, like maybe a 2-minute clip, and I don't think they even have to bleep anything to show that.
Right. Yeah, it's just stuff that they should be showing on Dynamite. They should be treating like Dynamite like nobody's seen anything else. Dynamite is the only thing people watch. And so I think it is a problem, though, because they only get 2 hours a week. But you need to make do with your 2 hours because you don't want to extend it. We see what 3-hour shows do. People can't keep up with it. So 2 hours is perfect length. You just need to use your time wisely. And there's always stuff that can be cut out or shortened and whatnot. And I think one of I think that brings up right into our next segment here. We have MJF, I'm not sure it was his entourage coming out shown on television.
It was.
Okay, so he comes out and guy gives him gum, and he's happy with the gum this time. Last week he fired the gum guy because he didn't like the gum that he had. And then we have MJF coming out to do another campaign speech, I guess, and he's basically saying that Jon Moxley, is not a worthy champion, and that he's not gonna lay down for him. It's like, well, this is getting a little meta, don't you think? Like, but the thing is, with everything that MJF said, it's all preposterous and not true. And I think when you go that meta with stuff that isn't true, it doesn't work, because this is like not even a grain of truth. You always have to have like a little grain of truth for a heel to work, and in this case, I don't think it works when he's basically saying that. It sounded like, Moxley's like burying people and he's like a prima donna or something, and that doesn't seem to jive with even the most cursory look at anybody who follows him outside of the business, that he seems to be like the least selfish guy out there.
Yeah, the whole idea of a heel needs to believe what he said, and I just didn't get that. The rest of the promo was great. I love the fact that he was on his back for most of it. I thought that was really funny. But the thing with MJF is he can make something entertaining even if I'm not fully on board. And maybe it's because I watched two shows so close together, but it feels like he's really repeating himself.
Right.
It feels like he has one point, and instead of elaborate, like the campaign speech he did was amazing. Like he hit all those points. He called Jon Moxley pretty much a Stone Cold ripoff. Got a little bit into the ratings I didn't care about, but he hit every point beautifully. And then the last 2 weeks, he's hitting those same great points, but just not really adding anything to them. And again, this is fine. He's entertaining. I love watching him. I love the fact that what Jon Moxley did in this promo, but there's nothing new. Like, there's no reason for me to watch this after I saw his first campaign. I didn't get anything new that I haven't already gotten from him.
Yeah, so MJF is then basically calling out Moxley that he's not going to come out and do anything. Of course, Moxley's music hits, and MJF sends all of his goons up into the crowd to the causeway to cut Moxley off, because he always comes out through the crowd. But of course, Moxley enters through the tunnel, and he takes out MJF with some punches, hits the paradigm shift, and then Moxley walks off backstage. He grabs a mic and says, if you even think that we're even now, you are completely mistaken. And he promises that the punishment he's going to hand out at AEW at All Out is going to be worse, and it's going to be one heck of a bitter pill for him to swallow. Again, Moxley promo, quick, to the point, gets the point across, and is pure fire every time.
One thing I do love about this is it makes the belt seem important. And I don't know if that's been done in many other AEW championship matches. It's been more personal between the guys, Moxley and Jericho and Hangman. The title has been almost secondary. I feel that MJF just wants the title. He would say bad things about whoever's holding the title. He just wants that title because he thinks he deserves it, and that makes it feel much more valuable to me. The first time I really feel like it's about the title, not about the two people.
Yeah, I think Moxley has always steered it at the title, though, because a lot of times in his promos he says stuff along the lines of, when this title is on the line, I do whatever it takes to basically hold on to it. He kind of said that to Darby Allin for last week. I like you and all, but once the title is on the line, all that is out the window, and I do whatever it takes to retain this title. So I think Moxley has always steered it towards the title, and all of his opponents have tried to make it personal with him, and it seems to just not work for getting at Moxley, because Moxley doesn't care about the personal stuff. He cares about keeping the title.
Right, yeah. Moxley's I love how like just professional and like you said to the point he is. He's like, I'm here to do this, this, and this, and then I'm gone.
Right. All right, next up we have Alex Marvez. He is backstage with Matt Hardy, and of course Matt Hardy last week basically said that he was no longer going to be doing all of his personas and everything, but it seems like he is, because he can't control which personas he seems to slip in out of during this interview. He talks about how Sammy, busted him open last week, and he of course didn't finish the job, and he can't wait to he's been seeing red for the past week, and he's going to continue to see red until he makes Sammy bleed himself, and he can't wait to get his hands on him. And then he sees who he thinks is Sammy and attacks him, but of course it is just referee Mike Posey, and Hardy ends up attacking him and walking away, and Mike Posey is like, what the hell?
I don't know if this is where the feud was going to go before Sammy got suspended for a little while, but I love everything about this. I know the chair shot was, a very dangerous mistake, but it's made this feud so much more compelling. It's not even funny. I was excited for this before. I love just the craziness of Matt Hardy, because he makes you believe what is goofy with almost anyone else. He just captures your imagination with it. He's very, very good at that, and I cannot wait to see what's going to happen when those two finally get in the ring. I do want there to be some sort of gimmick. I very rarely ever think matches need a gimmick. I think these two are going to do best if you just let them brawl. Just let them just completely tear each other, because I don't want to see, Sammy have Hardy in a headlock for, a minute. That's not this feud, I feel. I feel like this feud needs to have just crazy, uncontrollable brawl throughout the entire arena.
Yeah,
that's like how you settle this.
Yeah, like a Falls Count Anywhere type of match.
Yeah, they don't have to have like I don't need fire bar. I don't need any of that. I just need something that fits, the bloody Matt Hardy who got, 450 splash. That 450 splash or
with
whatever.
A half twist in it.
Yes, I don't know what exactly that was, but I was just captured by that so much. Like I didn't read any again, I didn't have internet. I didn't read any spoilers before watching AEW, so I looked at that chair shot and I was like, how do they do that? Like, how did that doesn't even? I was like, oh wait, he's bleeding. That wasn't intentional. Yeah. He really just busted Matt open, and I was just so enthralled, and I was like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah,
but
I can think of in AEW. I can think of at least 4 happy hard ways that have happened in AEW's history. We have Cody busting himself open on the ramp when he dived and face planted at the Jericho match. We have Jericho getting busted open at the weigh-in. We have Moxley getting busted open in the match with Jericho early on. And then we have another one here where Matt Hardy gets busted open by the chair on accident, but completely feeds into the story and makes it even that much better. So we've had like 4 happy accident hard ways.
We might have a 5th one. I don't know. I think this was a hard way, but when Sean Spears hit Cody with the chair. I don't think he was supposed to bleed, because I think the chair like bent the wrong way on him.
Yeah, that was another one. So so make that number 5. So man, but they kind of played into it in a lot of point, and it ends up working out in their favor. So far so good. But I thought this was interesting. I've talked about for a long time now that they need to make sure that they ground Matt Hardy soon. And they can't stay with all the kind of the fantastical stuff, the supernatural stuff, I guess. And here it seems like they are pulling it in now, and that yes, Matt Hardy has a split personality or multiple personality disorder, and it is not actually a mythical, creature of some kind.
Right, he didn't come from the Lake of Reincarnation or whatever that was at the Hardy compound. I like that he's going crazy. I like that, the chair shot to the head is what kind of shook him out of this, like you said, mythical, magical element. And now it's just, he's crazy. Right. He's going to attack anyone and almost like Sammy unleashed something out of him, because there's a shot from last week where he has that stronger than shirt, and just like the blood is covering it, and then he had that cool shirt this week, and I was just, that is such a cool image, and I hate that it had to come from such a dangerous accident. But I mean, when it comes to dangerous accidents, you could not have asked for a better one than that. It feeds into the story. It feeds into, a great feud. And as long as everyone's okay, I'm not mad that it happened.
Daxter's in the chat has added number 6, Britt Baker breaking her nose.
Wow. Now we're talking about it. It sounds like such a dangerous company. There's 6 just legitimate people getting, and none of these were like small cuts either. Like all these were, the Crimson Mask.
All right. Next up, we have the TNT Championship match, and immediately I wrote down in my notes, "Is that Mike Chioda?" And yes,
I was very
yes,
excited
it was. Very happy. Did you hear his interview on Talk Is Jericho?
I have not gotten to that yet. That is on my list of things that I'm going to get to. Is it good?
Yeah, it was really good. And of course, WWE, such a douche move, very similar to Good Brothers, that he had just barely signed a brand new contract and then they fire him, a few months later. So yeah, but I'm glad to see AEW picking up Mike Chioda. He's been a ref for 33 years and was like the longest tenured person in WWE, minus a couple backstage people with like 39 years in the company or something crazy like that. So
Nash had a good tweet about him. Did you see what Nash said about him?
I did not.
So Nash was talking about how just he's one of the best third men in the ring because he's so good that you never realize how good he is, and that's a testament to just a great ref. You don't see him in the ring. He's there for the 3 counts when you need him. He's there to be the straight man to whatever the heels are doing at the time, but other than that, he's almost invisible. And I was like, that's a great way of thinking about it, because you never really notice the ref if they're doing their job perfectly.
Yeah, and he's a good guy to have in there with younger talent too, because if they get lost, he can call spots as well. I've heard him being able to do that, so to get matches back on track if young guys totally screw up and are completely lost. Because that's another thing a really good ref can do is call spots if the wrestlers are completely lost. So we have the TNT Championship match. We have Cody versus Scorpio Sky. This was set up last week. Scorpio Sky calling out Cody in the tunnel, which was actually set up even earlier that week at AEW Dark, which of course they didn't show the promo that Scorpio Sky cut on AEW Dark, which they should have. But anyways, Cody comes out with a massive entourage. Seems a bit heelish to have this many people come out with you. He had Dustin, Brandy, Ali, QT Marshall, and Arn Anderson come out with him. So a little bit here. He seems to be healing it up a little bit. He got introduced as the Prince of Pro Wrestling this week. So, okay. I thought this match was decent. Cody starts selling the ribs at one point after doing a delayed vertical suplex, I think it was. Scorpio Sky also sold his back for a bit as well. So they're both kind of playing up some sort of midsection injury. And we have Cody working over Sky for quite a while. He even put him in a bow and arrow at one point, which was kind of funny. Sky hit a cutter on the stage at one point on Cody, rolled him back into the ring to a 2 count. Cody hits a crossroads and Scorpio Sky kicks out at 2. We have a flatliner hit by Sky for a near fall, and then Cody blocked the slingshot cutter or slingshot stunner type move that Sky likes to use. Hits a second crossroads and picks up the pin. There was a few kind of things that happened during this match where Cody was playing up a bit of a heel, and it seemed that after the pin, Scorpio Sky was a little bit pissed off or mad at some of the tactics that Cody used throughout this match. So I'm curious if that's going to be played up at all, but it seemed to fall flat and not even mentioned by commentary here, which it would have totally made way more sense for Cody to be a bit more heel here and have Sky take issue to it, and then that could set up a better, longer program between the two of them, maybe culminating either at All Out or sometime late September or something like that.
What I took from that was, because they almost cut straight from, Cody winning to, the Brody Lee. I was thinking that Scorpio Sky is going to start, and not even as a heel, but just start saying, so, I put up this great battle, I almost beat him. I kicked out of the Crossroads. And all you cared about was your next challenge. Like, you didn't take me seriously, blah, blah. I feel like Scorpio, the whole breaking down, kicking the door down when he came in was them trying to portray him as a big deal, even though at no point in this match, and this is my problem a little bit with Cody's open challenge, I don't feel that Cody's ever in danger of losing his belt. I like his matches. He puts on good matches, and I like the mystery of, who are we going to see? Are we going to see someone from the company? Are we going to see someone outside the company? But you're not going to look like, I don't feel at any point, there was a cool top rope suplex and, Scorpio Sky, grabbed him in a pin real quick. I never felt as cool as that move was that Scorpio Sky was going to win. Never in a million years did I ever feel that. And that took away from what should have been a much more entertaining match, because both of them, for no matter what I say, both of them worked their butts off. Like, that springboard cutter on the ramp looked so cool.
Yeah, this match would have actually probably made the most sense for Scorpio Sky to win, because this would then solidify that most of these matches, and you feel that way, that no way he's going to win, because it just doesn't feel there hasn't been a program built up or anything. But if Scorpio Sky would have won here, then suddenly it launches the TNT Championship as being the one where already basically it's the workhorse title, essentially. And if Scorpio Sky had taken it here, then suddenly everybody's like, oh, the TNT Championship matches, maybe they all do, we should be paying attention to them if, the title can change hands suddenly like this. And but I agree, Scorpio Sky was not built up, so it did feel flat. But I think taking the title off of Cody in this type of match would elevate the TNT Championship matches in general on being more important to have to watch them.
Oh yeah, and I think this would have been the perfect time, just like you said, because someone like me thinks there's no chance Scorpio Sky is going to win. You make this the match he wins, then I'm like, oh well, I do need, just like you said, I do need to pay attention. They mentioned, I think in the beginning, right before, by the way, as soon as they called Cody the Prince of Pro Wrestling, I was like, oh yeah, his days as a babyface are numbered. Right. Like, maybe the entourage was just like, hey, look at all of Cody's friends, his brother, blah, blah, blah. No, as soon as they call him the Prince of Pro Wrestling, I was like, yeah, he's turning. But they said Cody and Scorpio had like a combined 20. I wrote it down 24-2 this year, and I'm like, how is Scorpio, like, how? And then I remembered, oh yeah, he's been like killing it on Dark.
Yeah,
but you have to watch Dark to get that. Like, if you don't watch Dark, if you just watch Dynamite, the last time I remember Scorpio Sky having a singles match is when he lost to Jericho.
Right. Yeah.
And that was what, 2 months ago at this point, maybe 3.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Like, there's really no reason to root for Scorpio Sky. Like, he again did a good showing against Jericho, but I never thought for a second, Scorpio Sky was going to beat Jericho. So like, why would I think? Again, unless I watch Dark, unless I know Scorpio Sky has been on a roll, why would I think he's any real challenge to Cody's title?
Right, and that goes towards the argument of having Scorpio Sky should have taken the title off of him here, and then suddenly it launches Scorpio Sky, as well as makes all TNT Championship matches on TV meaningful, because the title can change, on somebody who just comes in for the open challenge. Even though, he's with the company, obviously you're not going to see somebody like Warhorse or somebody who isn't signed take it off of him. But, depending on who they happen to pull in at some point. But yeah.
Who do you think is going to take it off of him?
At this point, I don't know, because I was hoping Sky was actually going to take it off of him last night, but that didn't happen. We have Brody Lee challenging for it next week. So Brody Lee pops up onto the screen and delivers a pretty decent promo, and he actually has the old TNT Championship belt. They debuted the finished one finally, which looks really nice, I think. And he challenges him to a TNT title match next week. So that's going to be on Saturday, the 22nd. If that was not made clear to people, that they are not going to have Dynamite on Wednesday because of basketball, I believe. But here, Brody Lee is saying that, you're not going to, I guess I didn't write down the good words for this. Make fun of, or there'll be more meaning behind the words Dark Order when you say them. And
he said, put some respect on my name and put some respect on the Dark Order's name. I loved his promo. I loved his delivery of those lines too.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely a solid promo from him. And I don't know, Brody Lee next week could take it off of him. I wouldn't put it past them to have him take the title off of Cody.
Yeah, especially because at this point it's almost two heels fighting each other.
Right.
Because there's not a whole lot of redeeming factors about Cody. Like, the whole idea when AEW started was, he's Dusty Rhodes' son, but he's very earnest. He's very, he works for everything. Now it feels like with that entourage coming out, with this, Prince of Pro Wrestling, with Arn even kind of, healing it up a little bit, it feels like he's just one or two steps away from just being that entitled prick who you want to see just get KO'd.
Right.
So he doesn't really need the title. Have someone bigger kind of knock him down a number and give the Dark Order. It was fine that Brody Lee didn't win the world title. No one really thought he would. The Dark Order needs a big win.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't win the tag titles. They didn't they looked good against both the tag titles and they looked good against the Young Bucks, but they're coming up losing a lot. So you can only talk a good game for so long before you need that big win to solidify yourself as being serious. I think a title win from Brody Lee would be what they need to show that, yes, they're not just a foil for, the big guys. They are the big guys. So I would love to see Brody Lee take the title next week.
Yeah, and then you could go one of two routes with Cody. You could have Cody stay babyface a little bit longer, trying to get his TNT Championship back, and when he can't, then he goes off the rails and goes crazy and turns heel at that point. Or you can just have him go heel right after losing it. I think either way would work. So I guess we'll see how that plays out. And they're not really building a program towards All Out for who's going to be challenging for the title there. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it's going to go. Next up, we have the AEW Tag Team Championship match. And I did not know this was a championship match. Last week, they didn't really sound like it was going to be a championship match, but apparently it is. So we have Luchasauras and Jungleboy challenging Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. I thought Luchasaurus and Jungleboy looked really good in this. Jungleboy he was flying around like crazy. Him and Omega actually have decent chemistry. It'd be interesting to see maybe in like 2 or 3 years time, Jungleboy and Kenny Omega in a longer program. I think that could be pretty interesting with a slightly aging Omega and a up and coming, or basically heading into his prime, Jungleboy. We have Marco Stunt trying to get involved in a couple points. Omega gives him a Snapdragon on the outside at one point. He actually hands Snapdragons out to everybody. We have Jungle Boy and Omega just going breakneck speed at a bunch of points. Luchasaurus getting a hot tag, hitting a ton of kicks. Omega gets in a V-trigger to slow him down. And then we have a blocked buckshot lariat from Hangman attempting on Luchasaurus. And then we get Luchasaurus using Marco Stunt as a weapon, throwing him on the outside onto Omega. We have Page hitting a power bomb with a high stack on Jungleboy for a 2 count. And then in the end, we have Omega and Page hitting the last call and pinning Jungleboy for the win. I thought this was a decent match. There was a couple flubs here and there. Nothing too serious. Jungleboy just running around like a madman was pretty decent. Never thought that Luchasauras and Jungleboy had a chance of winning here, but all in all, I thought it was a good match.
Yeah, it was a really good match. I enjoyed everything about it. The only thing is, as long as you have, FTR in the background, just like with Cody, you're not going to convince me that Hangman and Omega are ever going to lose the titles until FTR gets their shot. And I think that takes away from these because you're building to so many things, which is by no stretch a bad thing. But it's hard for me to be emotionally invested if, I think making this a non-title match would have been so much better because I would have believed you're building up Luchasaurus and Jungleboy, them getting a non-title win over the champions, that I could have believed in, and that could have made this a little better, especially when you have someone like Omega who, and I had a friend who said this to me and I thought it was so apropos. Kenny Omega is the best at breaking up a tag or breaking up a pin at the last possible second. Like, I don't think anyone's ever done it better than he has.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I didn't ever believe that Luchasaurus and Jungleboy were going to win because it was for the titles. So, why do I care about, again, a really good match? Nothing amazing, but wonderful to watch. But without stakes, there's just 2 matches in a row where I didn't have any doubt of who was going to win. Kind of takes you out of the moment.
Yeah, and then Daxers makes a good point here in the chat that he doesn't really like the involvement of Marco, considering that they're supposed to be a babyface team, and they're also facing a babyface. Since it's babyface versus babyface, it would make more sense if Hangman and Omega were heels, and Marco Stunt got involved, because then it's kind of a fun getting involved. But here, it just really makes no sense when he's getting involved in a babyface versus babyface match.
Did he get involved prior to Omega just snap-dragging the heck out of him outside?
Yeah,
I think that's what...
He jumped up onto the apron right at the beginning of the match and was yelling at him. And I think he grabbed his foot once when he was running the ropes as well. So Marco was getting involved, and then of course he gets used as a lawn dart by Luchasaurus as well. So it comes off as heelish to me if the team that they are facing is not a heel.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Though I think I'm supposed to be distracted by the fact that Kenny Omega, his hair keeps getting darker and darker.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't notice this until watching it Monday and then watching today. I think that's intentional. I think it's a red herring. I don't think he's going to turn heel, but he is looking more like the guy I've seen in New Japan, the cleaner.
Yeah, he's
week.
heading
I love it.
more and more towards cleaner land. Though they haven't touched on that on BTE for a couple weeks now, that he has been kind of doing some of his cleaner tendencies, but all in all, pretty good. Next, we have a quick promo with Santana and Ortiz. They're back in the locker room, back in the shower area, and they say that they are not going to apologize for trashing the best friend's mom's van. And they say, "Oh, and be careful where you store your shit." And they pull up. They have 2 suitcases. One of them is hilariously polka dotted, and it's the best friend's suitcases. They dump out the contents in the shower area and pour bleach all over it, and that's it. I thought this was fine. The one thing that they didn't resolve it, so there was no best friends finding their gear.
Yeah, I'm not invested in this enough to be interested in what happens next week. When it happens next week, I'm sure I'll be, oh, this is cool, but there need to be a little more in this segment for me. I completely forgot about it until I was looking at my notes right after this tag match. I was like, oh yeah, the best friend, I like the whole thing with their mom. I like the best friend's mom. I really do, but there wasn't anything interesting enough for me to care too much.
Yeah, and I think the lack of resolve by the best friends might have made this fall even flatter because there wasn't a callback to it, and it was a quick, 45-second, 1 minute segment, and that was about it. It wasn't very impactful because you didn't see the impact on the people who it was supposed to have an impact on.
Right, I was half expecting to be like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to go look on YouTube to find out what happens, or BTE or something. But
Right.
I feel like you could have used this time for something else, especially again, hindsight's 2020. I don't know what happened in the main event, but give this time to let the main event simmer a little bit,
Right.
and then we'll talk about this later. But this time could have been used much better. This is where I was talking earlier in the show about just feeling disjointed and not necessary, wasting time on things that aren't necessary.
Yeah, and this could be one of those things that if this was a tape show, they could cut this segment to give the main event that extra time, if they're running long. All right, next up we finally have FTR, which it's kind of funny if they're pretty bad hosts. We have the Bucks FTR in the ring. We have Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Ricky Morton, and Robert Gibson of the Rock and Roll Express. And Matt basically cuts the promo on the Young Bucks' behalf, basically saying if it wasn't for the Hardys and the Rockers and the Rock and Roll Express, and that the Rock and Roll Express were kind of like the original Young Bucks, there would be no Young Bucks without them. Dax basically says the same thing, also putting over Arn and Tully for setting the bar where it was. He says it allows him to provide for his family. And then Ricky Morton grabs the mic and he basically puts over the Bucks and FTR as well. Arn Anderson grabs the mic. He says he puts over the Bucks. He says that the Rock and Roll Express are the team of the century. But this, referring to FTR, is the best team on the planet. And then Tully grabs the mic and is basically like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Neither of you have championship gold. Really, which he didn't say, but he should have. There's only one team in this ring that has held gold in the past year, being the Rock and Roll Express. They had the NWA tag titles within the past year.
That would have been such a good burn on the Young Bucks and FTR. They missed a golden opportunity for that.
Yeah, they would have been good. And then he says he's had a problem with Arn Anderson ever since he interrupted the Shawn Spears match at All Out. And he's like, what the heck is this Nightmare Family crap on Arn Anderson's vest? And then Arn Anderson leaves, and we have Ricky Morton and Tully get into a shoving match when Ricky Morton throws a punch at Tully, and basically they have to do a bit of a pull apart here. Dax goes down, selling his knee again that he hurt last week. He takes off his knee brace so he can kind of stretch it out a little bit, but then FTR attack, takes out Gibson with the knee brace. He whacks him behind the head. They set up Morton for the spike pile driver. This injury by Dax was a phony. It was fake. He's been playing him the whole time, even going back to last week. I'm assuming that he wasn't really hurt. He just wanted to cause strife with the Elite. The Young Bucks run in for the save, but it's already too late. They've already, given the spike pile driver to Morton, and the FTR bail out. And then we have Omega running in, and then Paige wandering out. And Paige is like, what the hell? He thought, he kind of had the look on his face like, FTR, I thought you guys were my friends and are good guys. What the hell did you do that for? So I'm curious if what FTR just did turns Hangman back against FTR and kind of pull him back into the fray of the Elite once again. It's like every time they think he's out, they pull him right back in.
Right, the people he thought he could trust. Real quick, when I was watching this for the first time, I was getting a little bored just because, you have everybody kind of, oh, Young Bucks are so great, FTR is so great. Remember when we were the Brainbusters? We were like,
yeah, it's a bit of a circle jerk.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay. And then Tully gets the mic. And if there was ever any doubt that they should be using Tully more, this promo was it, because he had that passion. He had that just emotion, like, and he didn't do the burn we were just talking about, but he was like, you don't have the title. You don't have the title. Neither of you are the best. And I was just like, yes, he's like, not just glad handing these people. He's not just, he saved that segment for me. And I think that's what it was supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be, everyone just like, oh, we're all great. Arn saying, I'm an adult and I have been for quite some time. I don't know why, but that made me laugh. Just his delivery being like, I'm an adult. Like, yeah, dude, we know. You're like my grandpa's age. We know you're an adult. And then Morton, every time I turn around, it seems like Morton's taking some huge bump. Like a Canadian destroyer, or like he's just doing something that a man of his age should not be doing. And I would not at any age take a spike pile driver, but he sold it and he looked good doing it.
I mean, I saw him. I saw the Rock and Roll Express live on a New Japan show in Massachusetts, and they faced Chase Owens and I forget somebody else from the Bullet Club. But that show was that match was awesome. And Ricky,
yeah, I'll always watch a Rock and Roll Express do something.
Ricky Morton hit a standing Hurricanrana in the middle of the ring.
My God,
it was insane.
Like, I don't see how they're still, and they're entertaining. Like, they were glad handing a little bit and kind of like you said, circle jerking, but they were still a very 80s promo from them, like a very and like they were almost like an anime, like they're just so overexcited and over enunciating everything they say. And I loved it. I was like, oh, I miss these kind of promos every once in a while. Every few months, bring these guys out for something crazy, and I'm completely for it.
Daxers wants them to stop using the Rock and Roll Express, but I'm gonna have to disagree with him on that one.
Yes, I like using them as much as they have. Like once every few months, just kind of bring them out and be like, hey, remember when we were great? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Now we're gonna go back in hiding.
Yeah. All right, so we go backstage. Alex Marvez is with Mike Chioda. And then Jericho comes in and is talking about how he saved Mike Chioda's job 18 years ago. I am not totally sure what that is about. I don't remember them talking about that on the Jericho podcast, so I'm guessing something might have happened at some point. And he says to Mike Chioda, I want you to call it, right down the middle tonight, wink, wink. And Mike Chioda promises to call it right down the middle. Jericho says, yes, when I give you the signal, you got to call it right down the middle, and then maybe he can get him a job. Then, yeah, it's like Jericho.
I love Jericho.
Jericho's like trying to get him to do something outside of the rules, wink, wink, and it's like Mike Chioda's like, what the hell are you talking? No, I'm not gonna do that. But Jericho thinks he's agreeing with him for whatever reason, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't get the whole I saved your job thing. I assumed it was just Jericho being, Jericho, like, oh, without me you wouldn't be here. I don't know if there was more to that or not. I didn't think there was, but maybe there was something that we just don't know about. Yeah. Which if so, you shouldn't have something so meta that two people who are on a podcast and you weekly talk about AEW don't even know. If it's that meta, maybe you should leave it off your show.
Let's see, Jericho, Chioda, 18 years ago.
Was 18 years ago? So 2002?
Yeah.
I don't think Jericho was saving anyone's job back in 2002. He barely had one oh no, he was undisputed champion, so I guess maybe he was in a good position.
Yeah. All right. It's going to take me too long to figure out what it is.
Yeah, if anyone knows, put it in the chat or send it in the Discord. That'd be fantastic. Or comment. Any of those work.
Yep. Next up, we had Hikaru Shida facing Heather Monroe. This was Monroe's AEW debut. I have no idea anything about her. Yeah, this went 2 minutes, and she actually managed to get a few strikes in, but Hikaru Shida turns it around with a jumping knee, suplex into the buckle, and then Shida actually won with the stretch muffler.
Awesome name for that move.
Had you not seen that move before?
I'd never heard it called that
Oh,
before.
okay. Yeah.
Like I've only, if it's not into like a game, like I usually call it what they are in games, and I was like, I like that name for that move.
Yep.
That was like the only thing I liked about this match, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was kind of blah. It was really unnecessary. So
I think we're talking about this match longer than it's actually went, and I'm almost positive it was cut short.
Yeah.
I think this match was supposed to be longer, and if you're going to cut a match short, it's not the women's match when it's not. I don't know what you feel about the tag team title tournament for the women, but I could care less about it, and that's really disappointing because they have some great talent they're just not using.
Yeah, let's talk about that after tag tournament. Okay, we'll talk about that after the show, or at the end of the show. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we had Shivani interviewing Shida real quickly. And that Shida is still waiting for a challenger to bring it on, and that was about it. We have another backstage with Jake Roberts and Lance Archer. Archer is just beating him up a bunch of people in the locker room, and while Jake is cutting a promo that I couldn't hear because he was talking so damn quiet, and I don't think the mic that he was actually holding was on. I think they were using a boom mic, and it was just not loud enough. And then for whatever reason, Lance Archer's like, did you tell them? Did you tell them? And then Archer rips Jake's shirt, and he has "Everybody Dies" on his back. Why is "Everybody Dies" written on Jake's back, and why is Lance Archer tearing off his shirt to show him that?
This promo gave me way more questions than it had any intention of answering, and I don't think any of them are good questions. I'm glad they're using Lance Archer. I'm like, when they don't use people like Archer or Cage, I'm like, oh, I really miss these guys. But this wasn't the best use of him. Surely, like, you could have done something. Don't use this at all. Just give him like a quick, add him to a commentary on a match or something. But like, this isn't needed. Yeah. Like, I feel like you could have given this time to the women, put him on commentary put him on commentary with Cody and Sky or something to get your point across. Jake can talk and he can stand there looking menacingly, but this did nothing for me that I needed. I'm all for using him. I love Lance Archer, but just not like this.
Yeah, it was kind of unnecessary. We have Daxers in the chat put Kyoto was in a wrestling match teaming with Jericho and The Rock to take on a team of the Dudley Boys and referee Nick Patrick on an episode of SmackDown in 2001, and Kyoto scored the pinfall after his version of the People's Elbow to Nick Patrick. So I guess it was a loser leaves town match of some kind, and Mike Kyoto got to keep his job.
Sounds like old school, like alliance with WCW, ECW.
Yep. All right, and then
thank you, Daxers, for that. I appreciate you. Good luck on
that. Then we have they have advertisements for Dark on Tuesday. The Deadly Draw semifinals are on Monday, and that they're going to play part of All Out last year on the YouTube channel, and I think they also had the Being the Elite advertisements somewhere around here as well. And then we talk about next week's show, and we'll talk about it at the end of the show. So we have Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho, the $7,000 obligation match. So does Jericho have to pay Orange Cassidy $7,000 if he wins, or is it a one-way stipulation here?
Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure. Where's this? Like, I get your jacket cost set, whatever. Then I was like, I just care about the match, and I've just gave up on it. Whatever, just give him $7,000 and be done with it.
So right off the bat, Inner Circle and Best Friends have been banned from ringside, so they're out there alone. Cassidy goes off as soon as the bell rings. He hits Jericho with everything. He completely takes over the match right at the beginning here. We have Jericho turning it around for a while and works Orange Cassidy over for a bit. We have a back suplex from Jericho. He hits him with a forearm. The springboard drop kick that he likes to do to the person on the apron. We have a delayed for a very long time suplex from Jericho throughout the commercial break. I'm not sure, was that picture in picture for you guys?
It was.
Okay, so Jericho is pretty much in control throughout that. He did a bunch of delayed vertical suplexes for a pretty long time. That last one coming out of commercial break, and then we have Orange Cassidy does make a comeback, hits a super kick, clothesline, crossbody off the top. He hits these dragon screws that Jericho sells really weird. Like, he didn't go in the direction of the dragon. He just kind of fell backwards.
And they kept doing it. It's like they went to the well on something that wasn't working anytime they tried it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that is not how you sell a dragon screw leg whip. Yeah, just did not work. That definitely fell very flat to me, especially when I had just barely watched a Tanahashi match, and he likes to do the dragon screws, and people sell them a lot better in New Japan. He caught Cassidy off the ropes. Cassidy went for a Hurricanrana, but he turned it into a Walls of Jericho. Cassidy manages to get out of that and actually turns it into a small package for a 2 count. And then we have Orange Cassidy putting on an ankle lock onto the same leg that he was working with the dragon screws. So, I mean, they kind of had to do it if they were going to go to this spot, but yeah, it just didn't work. Maybe he should have, stomped on his knee a few times or something like that. Cassidy counters out of a suplex, hits a stunner. Jericho hits a code breaker for a near fall, and then Jericho grabs the bat and he tells Mike Chioda to turn around so he doesn't see him using the baseball bat. So Chioda kind of turns a little bit, and then Jericho turns towards Cassidy, and then Chioda grabs the bat out of his hand. We have Cassidy hitting they called it a Michinoku driver, but I'm pretty sure it was a Falcon Arrow. And then hits the orange punch, which is the Superman punch. And then we have these shenanigans. We have Santana and Ortiz trying to run in. They're brawling with the best friends up on the stage. And while everybody is watching that happen, Hager runs in and hits a slam on Cassidy. And Jericho is slow to cover, but he does get the cover. Orange Cassidy kicks out. They have a bunch of striking exchanges. Jericho hits a low blow at one point behind the ref's back. Cassidy ducks a Judas effect and uses the mousetrap cradle on Jericho for the pin. Wasn't executed as well as it should have been. It looked a bit sloppy, but in the end, Orange Cassidy pulls out the victory here, and then they pretty much immediately have to go off the air because there was basically no time left.
Yeah, and the ending is what killed it for me. The last 3 or 4 minutes was really, really sloppy. So it did have some cool moments, but just the ending being so the suplex into a stunner was one of my favorites, and whatever that you're right, they did call it Michinoku driver. That was I don't think so. But just the ending was sloppy, and the fact that he didn't really even have time to celebrate just left a really bad taste in my mouth. And I hate it because this is Orange Cassidy. This should have been Orange Cassidy's, coronation, as he's not this mid-card comedy wrestler. He does not have a ceiling of that. He is someone who, this is where he shows his intensity. This is where he shows that he cares. And this is the first match, maybe his match a little bit with Pac, but this is the first match where I feel like he was giving it his all 100% of the time. And for it to have just such a fart of a finish and just an ending just took away from what should have been a great moment for Orange Cassidy. Something that's shown in his highlight clips for years to come is almost an afterthought at this point.
Yeah, and I almost thought that they were going to go to a TV time remaining draw. I think that would have made sense if they did go to a draw because they ran out of TV time, because that's what the match was. It was one fall TV time remaining. I think this would have made sense to use that TV time remaining draw that they've only used once, but this could have been a spot to do it.
Yeah, I would have even been okay seeing a third match between these guys. When their first match, when they were on, there was a great match. And there was definitely great moments in this match. This is where I feel like the women's match had time cut. I feel like this match had something cut from it, whether it's, time or whatever, because they were rushing, and Jericho is really good at, taking his time in the ring. You don't see him showing, he doesn't have a lot of time left, or you don't see him showing, oh, we blew a spot. He's good at improv. Yeah, I can't say the word I want to say. But he's good at calling things on the fly. Just from all those dragon screws that I don't know if he took them incorrectly or if that's what they were going for. That Orange Cassidy couldn't take him all the way, but by the third or fourth one, I was just like, ugh, can we just end this match now? Like, I don't even care if Orange Cassidy wins at this point. Just please end this match.
Yeah,
and that's not what you want to feel from this match at all.
Yeah, and yeah, just that finish just kind of fell super flat. Just because it was rushed so bad and the cradle wasn't good. I mean, normally I think if they had more time, this would be a type of thing that Jericho would have been like, I'm kicking out of this because we're totally fucking it up, and then go to get back in there and then finish out a different way. Because it was going to fall flat. I think that's something Jericho normally would have done if they weren't completely out of time and just had to finish the match.
Yeah, I would have much rather them just called an audible and been like, let's do a TV time and we'll explain it next week.
Right, and even I think that probably should have even been the original finish of the match, is let it hit TV time, then you can have your third match. So you have Jericho 1, then a draw, and then have your third match at All Out. With some sort of stipulation or something like that if they needed it, or just have your third match at All Out with, unlimited time or something. I think that
because it's not like either one of them have a match at All Out right now, and they probably have an idea of what they're doing, but if they change him and like, okay, we're having the third one, can Orange Cassidy finally do it? He lost the first one, he came so close the second time. Is the third time the charm? That's a story that easily writes itself. Yeah. And it would have had even if, he couldn't have lost the third one, but even no matter what happened, that's a better finish than this.
Yeah, I think they're going for their third match at All Out. I think that's where they were going anyways. So I think hitting the draw on here probably would have been a much better finish out to the show.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So is this kind of one of the things that made the show feel a bit flat?
It was, because with almost any AEW show and any good wrestling show, you can have some okay, and nothing was bad. Maybe the women's match, but it was too short to really be good or bad. Nothing was really bad in this event. It was just okay. Maybe my expectations were too high. I don't care about this match too much. I know who wins. The main event was what I was looking forward to. Orange Cassidy getting his revenge on Jericho, Orange Cassidy getting a win. And even if he lost, I feel like they would have told the story enough to make me care. But the main event I was really, really looking forward to this. I love their debate. I didn't get a chance to talk about that with, you last week, but I love their debate. I love Bishop. Like, I was just so invested in this match, and for it to have such a sloppy sequence at the end and then just such a bad finish. And then just like the icing on top of this awful cake was he wins, bad pinfall, cut to like Snowpiercer, I think was what was on next. And I was like, what? And then I was like, okay, maybe like, last week there'll be something on YouTube. And maybe this is my fault for expecting something. Maybe like him talking, maybe the best friends coming out, something that gives me, a little bit more. And as of this point, there's been nothing to build on his win. No, like, orange juice celebration, no, like, not even a Jericho complaining with and Dax put this in the thing with Jake Hager's awful ponytail. Like, just nothing to like finish that up, and that was really disappointing. So when you end on such a sour note with something you were looking forward to, the rest of the show kind of suffers when you think back on it.
Yeah, I mean, there really hasn't been a bad AEW show. There's just been different levels of good. I thought the show was good. It was on the lower end of good, but it was perfectly fine. It's a lot better than other wrestling that I have watched in the past. So, of Of course,
I'd much rather watch this than anything else right now. The worst AEW show is better than almost anything else.
Right.
And it's not bad. I think just kind of like when your mom's like, I'm not mad at you, I'm just disappointed. I didn't hate the show, but I was just like, it should have been so much better for how excited I was. And maybe that's just my expectations.
Yeah. All right. So let's just next week is on the 22nd, 6:00 Eastern. It was originally ported as 3, but that's probably the Wrestling Observer. They're on the West Coast, so it's probably not paying attention.
It's good to know my notes weren't wrong, because I did have that in my notes, and then they came on. I was like, oh, good thing I need to change that, because if I start trying to watch this at 3, I'm gonna be very disappointed.
Yeah, I think it's because I read it in the Wrestling Observer, and they didn't realize that it was 3 Pacific time. Yeah, 3 local time for them. The Deadly Draw semifinals are going to be on Monday. So the women's tag tournament, the first week, a lot of people were really down on it. I was okay with it. I thought that the Tay Conte looked good, and I forget who she was teaming with now that I'm talking about it. But I thought Tay Conti looked good. They had a decent match. They took on Nyla Rose, I think, right, and Ariane. So I thought that was fine. They worked over Nyla's leg. It was a good story that they told. I think that match came out fine. Of course, then we had the Nightmare Sisters in the other match that did not come out as fine.
That's one way of saying it. Not as fine.
And then it's like, okay, this is really not random at all, because we have Little Swole and Big Swole together on a team, and then we have the Nightmare Sisters on a team, and then we have Ivelisse and Diamante on a team together as well. It's like, this is a really weird coincidence on being random teams put together.
Right.
All in all, the matches this week were god awful. I was expecting a lot more out of a team of Ivelisse and Diamante. That just did not work. So yeah, it's falling pretty flat at this point. And I swear Brandy has a complete split personality. She can't decide if she's a good guy or a bad guy. She was really heelish last week, but then here on Dynamite, she seemed not so heelish. She just cannot make up her mind on what the hell's going on.
And you could almost say that for her entire run in AEW. Sometimes she's Cody's wife. Sometimes she's part of, this crazy borderline cult. She's just been so all over the place. I'm just I'm trying to give her so many benefit of the doubt, and I do with almost anything with AEW, but it's just,
she's very bipolar.
Yeah, very much so. If it turns out that this was just a long con on her part for taking control, whatever, I'm okay with that. But I don't feel like it is. I feel like she's just wandering around aimlessly with no real direction on what she's doing.
Yep. So all in all, I don't really care too much about the women's tag tournament. It is a bit of a bummer just how many people they have out of the. This would have been fun. I don't know why they're bothering doing it now when they don't even have a full roster. We have tons of people who are stuck out of the country. B. Priestley is out of the country. Sadie Gibbs, I believe, is stuck out of the country. We have Riho and Yuka. They're both stuck out of the country as well. So it's like, okay, you have some of your best wrestlers are stuck out of the country. Shayna, she's out of the country as well. So it's like, oh, yeah, some of your best people are not in the country. And some of their best people that they've had on AEW Dark are not in the tournament. I don't know why Danny Jordan isn't in the tournament. She's better than half the people that they had in the tournament. They had to have Dasha in the wrestle. It's Danny Jordan's right there. Just put Danny in there.
Right, I have no idea why they're doing this. I don't know. It's not like it's on TV. It's not like TNT said, we're giving you an extra night every week for this tournament. It's been done online, so you could have just postponed it. I just don't. I'm almost watching just because I feel like I have to. Just I know the finals are next week, but I'm I don't care.
Right.
I don't care about this. It hasn't been entertaining. Like, and I want to love the women's division. When they have everyone, they have a fantastic women's division. But you're right, so many people either injured, out of the country due to the quarantine. There's just not a whole lot to get excited about, and the solution to that isn't show your lack of depth in a tournament a tag team tournament. That was not your solution for your women's division right now.
Right. So this is going to be interesting because next week, I'm just going to jump to this one. We have the Lucha Bros and Butcher and Blade versus Jurassic Express and Natural Nightmares. So very interesting. We have Butcher and Blade versus the Natural Nightmares. Allie in the mix here, previously with Butcher and Blade, maybe still with them covertly. We don't know. But geez, this freaking storyline needs to resolve soon with Allie and whatever the hell's going on with her and QT Marshall and Butcher and Blade.
They were hot, and we were talking about that a lot in the Discord, which, by the way, if you haven't joined, you definitely should. But we were talking a lot about that for the first few weeks because commentary was making enough mentions of it for it to be something big, but also keeping it a little bit subtle to where you cared about what was happening next. And then you had like Brandy come in. I'm like, oh, okay, I like this dynamic. Like Brandy's trying to get into QT and be like, hey, the Scarlet Jacket, blah, blah. And then with so many branching paths, I don't know if they forgot about it for a few weeks, but I sure did. I sure forgot about this for a few weeks. And then they bring it back and I was like, oh yeah, this thing. I don't know if I care about it anymore, but I'll give them a chance. And I don't care.
Right.
I don't like they either forgot about it or I had to watch Dark, and I tuned out at a specific point, whatever. I don't care. Like I saw QT Marshall's going to be on next week and I was like, all right, whatever. Like they're whatever. Pretty much this is just throwing my hands up at that point.
Yeah, well, I think QT getting COVID and having basically being off for
That's
month.
right. He did get COVID. It might not have been AEW's fault. Then.
Yeah, so he was out for a month. So if this was going to resolve earlier or not is a thing. But yeah, way back right at the beginning, Allie was on commentary 2 weeks in a row on Dark, and they specifically asked her about her relationship with Butcher and Blade, and she purposely sidestepped the question both times. So it's like, well, they wouldn't ask that question 2 weeks in a row on commentary directly to Allie if it wasn't part of the storyline. And now it seems like it's just kind of hanging out there. And I think they need to, I hope next week, it being the finals of the Deadly Draw next week on Dynamite, as well as Butcher and Blade will be paired off against Natural Nightmares, that this Allie storyline comes to a head and we can finish this up, because now it's just lost any intrigue because it's just gone on too long.
Yeah, and I thought about that briefly because I was like, all right, so it's, Butcher and Blade on one side, QT on the other. Are they going to mention it? And I tried to muster up some level of being like, okay, maybe they're going to do this, this, and this. And I literally could not find any amount caring about it. Like, the match should be good. You have a lot of good talent in that ring, but I don't know. I think it's just going to get lost in the shuffle. And I think that's almost the only reason for that match. That's the only thread that those four have together.
Right.
Like, I guess the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and the Blade are part of what will eventually be the Pentagon when Pac comes back. But other than that, like, Dustin doesn't really have anything. Lucha Boy, Jungle Boy, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus really don't have anything. Like, there's now no real reason for that match unless they progress that storyline further.
Right. So next week we have FTR versus Private Party. That should be an interesting match. Huge clash of styles there. We have Omega and the Bucks versus a Dark Order faction of Reynolds, Silvers, and Angels, aka Five. We have the Deadly Draw finals. We have Darby Allin supposed to be in action. Then we have the Lucha Bros, Butcher and Blade versus Jurassic Express and Natural Nightmares, as well as Cody versus Brody Lee for the TNT Championship. This all happening on August 22nd at 6 o'clock Eastern, which is a Saturday, not the usual Wednesday. So I'm interested to see how the numbers play out when they aren't going head to head against. Well, they are sort of going head to head against NXT because NXT Takeover starts at 7 o'clock. So
yeah, I have that in my notes. I'm curious to see how that's going to affect them.
Yeah. So, and if the basketball game runs long, they're going to start as soon as the game is over if it runs past 6 o'clock. So they could be, the longer that basketball game goes on, the more against the takeover they're going to be, though it is on, it is a network special, so it might not be as big as something on USA Network. But I'm interested to see, one, how the NXT's numbers play out against no competition next week, if they're still going to hang around the number that they were doing prior to AEW even starting, because they were still, before AEW even started, they had those few weeks ahead and they were still only doing like 600,000. So,
and they had some stacked shows in the beginning, I remember.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how the AEW numbers do on a Saturday night at 6 o'clock against, I don't know what type of other competition, but no NXT competition. Well, I guess they have NXT, like I said, they have the TakeOver show. So I'm curious how that plays out. But then we have a few shows that are going to be on Thursday nights. So I'm curious how those play out. Both shows were down in the ratings this week. AEW by a little over 100,000. Actually, NXT was down a big chunk as well, as the lowest combined audience since the beginning of June. So that's interesting to see it played out that way. I didn't expect that much of a drop of total viewers versus what they had, because AEW dropped 109,000 and NXT dropped 125,000 or so that's a 240,000 drop combined, though that they did have some competition with I believe baseball and NHL starting playoffs as well. So
I chalk that more up to, basketball has been, it just started about a week ago. So, and every game is now much more important than it normally would be because we don't have as many games to determine playoffs. So, each matchup is more, one, they have a much more exciting lineup. My Spurs, unfortunately, for the first time since the 90s, didn't make the playoffs. Very disappointed about that. But so you have games that are more important. So I can understand why both took a hit. What I'm more shocked about is that going up at least an hour against a takeover, which I don't know. I haven't been following NXT, but I'm assuming this takeover, like most of them, are pretty stacked. I'm shocked that this card doesn't have more substance to it on paper. Like, it could be a great show. Like, at hindsight, it could be like, oh, this is the best Dynamite ever, and I really wouldn't be surprised. But just on paper, that's not a card I would expect to go head to head with a pay-per-view or whatever they call the network shows.
Yeah, or they might not be too. Well, that's the one thing. AEW doesn't tend to counter book. They book the show that they're planning on booking, regardless of what's on the other channel or what the other people are doing. So I'm fine with how it is, because they don't seem to lose their stride just because their competition is doing something else. So I mean, that's kind of been the pattern. They don't tend to counterbook. It tends to be NXT that's always counterbooked stuff. So
hasn't worked out too well for them last I checked.
No. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes next week. Definitely how the numbers play out as well. But, all in all, on paper, I like the lineup. FTR versus Private Party should be a good one. And then we have the Bucks and Omega versus Dark Order, Reynolds and Silver. Silver has been, I thought he did really good last week. He was super fast and hit some crazy strikes and everything. I think Reynolds and Silver as a team are way underrated, and they're just, since they've basically been used as jobbers, they just tend to be jobbers in everybody's mind. But I think that team could get built up. They have the talent. I think they just need to build them up, and they have personality that we see over on BTE. They're pretty damn funny.
If they could just bleed that into the show, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so I think it could work out. So all in all, I think the lineup looks fine. I'm curious who Darby Allin will be facing. That's kind of the current the unfulfilled lineup, but we have 5 matches already on here, so
a lot of and this is one thing AEW does almost every other week, not quite, but they do a lot of multi-man matches.
Mm-hmm.
And the 12-man tag, I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this. I like the 12-man tag when I thought it could have been a huge cluster.
It was way better than the 10-man the week before.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Go figure. Add 2 more men and it ends up turning out better.
But FTR versus Private Party, I'm gonna just say right now, I think that's gonna be the match of the night. Not taking anything away, I'm beyond excited that Lucha Brothers are back. They are, I think, one of my favorite tag teams in the world, so I'm very excited to see them back. But the only match I'm really excited for is Cody versus Brody Lee, just because I want Brody Lee to win. Mm-hmm. I don't think Darby's going to be fighting anyone of any interest, or else they would try and hype it up.
Right.
I think it's just being like, hey, this guy that you really like, let's keep him in your mind for a little while. He'll be in action against, someone, Sonny Kiss, or someone he'll do a good match with, but you'll forget it, the moment the next match starts.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it should be fine. Oh crap, there's something I wanted to say about that though.
That Sonny Kiss is great, and he should be used much more often. Yeah, I agree.
That too. Did you listen to his interview on Unrestricted?
No, again, I'm so backed up on my podcast. I need to listen to. I haven't listened to anything.
It was very, very good. He's a very interesting person, and I want to hang out with him and Joey Janela.
100%. Those two, I want them to be doing so much more because I love them. But yes, they both have just such a interesting dichotomy between the two of them.
Yeah, and on the Unrestricted podcast, Sonny was talking about how he and Joey Janela have been all over the place. They always rode in the car together, so they were traveling buddies before coming to AEW anyway. So I was pretty sure that was the case. I was pretty sure I heard in a interview at one point that they were good friends anyways, and that's why they got paired up. But yeah, he just confirmed it on that they were road buddies anyways. But as far as doing a lot of multi-man matches, I am perfectly fine with how they book, because that saves the team versus team matches, so the tag team matches, and saves the one-on-one matches for down the road. It's very similar to New Japan booking, that they do a lot of multi-man matches all the time, and then might do 1, possibly 2 singles matches on a show, which I'm perfectly fine with, because it pushes everything out, but it gives you a taste of things to come, and you don't have to read as much into the finishes as, say, WWE might try to reverse psychology you. Okay, this person took the pin, they're going to lose at the pay-per-view. It takes every time.
50-50 booking, yeah.
Right. So this is doing the multi-man matches is a way to get a pin on somebody who can take the pin and not really be a big deal. New Japan, the young lion always ends up eating the pin. You always know who's going to take the pin in the match, but it works out. So I think it's fine how they're doing it. All right.
You mentioned that with Jungleboy and Omega, having a fun rivalry down the line. It kind of got me thinking they could hire no one for 5 to 6 years, have just keep everyone they have now, and they would not have to repeat a single match on pay-per-view.
I know.
They have just that much depth of talent and interesting matches. Not even that we'll see, John Moxley versus John Silver. I think that'd be a great match, but still. But you could just don't sign anyone else, and you can have compelling TV for the next 5 years. Yeah, with fresh matches.
I saw somebody compiled a list of all the tag teams in AEW, like proper tag teams, not like just 2 singles guys put together, but they actually are always a team. And they have 18 teams.
That doesn't even surprise me.
So they have plenty of depth in the tag team division, of course. And then, of course, they could do a trios, which they were talking about possibly doing a trios, at the beginning of next year.
Oh, please do.
They have like at least 12 that I've counted trios that they could have already. So yeah, I would like to see that, but I'd love to see. Oh, I just saw this right now. Just popped up 24 minutes ago. Sadie Gibbs has been released from AEW.
I saw there was something in our Discord about that.
What the heck? Why that?
Jimmy
happened?
Havoc, Bay Presley, and then Sadie Gibbs.
Oh no, they released B too?
Yeah.
Oh man. All right.
Well, Havoc, I thought they might be releasing him. It's a bummer because I like him, but he had he had a lot of controversy a few weeks ago. I'm not sure why Sadie was released.
Yeah, I am not sure on that. Asked if she meant she left AEW, she replied she was released. So, well, it doesn't seem like it was a mutual
parting. Yeah.
So I guess we'll see.
This is very much a wish you the best on all your future endeavors kind of thing.
Kind of a bummer because she was really good. All right. So, well, that I guess takes two people off my they're stuck out of the country list that I had earlier.
Well, I was literally going to mention, who'd be a good fun person for Darby Allin to fight? A returning Jimmy Havoc. Just do a small little hardcore brawl just to kind of give you the idea that anything can happen in AEW. We can have a hardcore match without advertising it.
Right.
Just because he's going to return soon, I thought. But nope, he's definitely not who's going to be fighting Darby Allin next week.
All right. So I guess we will see how everything plays out. I'm hoping that as far as the women's division go, now that Kairi has left WWE once her contract runs out, I kind of hope AEW can just pull her in for a few dates here and there throughout the year. She doesn't need to be on a full-term contract, just come in for a show, maybe 2 weeks in a row and then come back in 6 weeks or something like that. I hope they could work something out.
Zach or Mark Cardona wasn't on this week. Right. You can have big names who's not necessarily on every week. Lucha Brothers, when honestly were the last time they were on? I think it's been a month now.
Yep.
So you can have big guys and still care about them and not necessarily need to show them. Have her do 2 weeks of TV and then have her tape maybe 3 to 4 weeks of either promos, backstage brawl, or something just to keep her in the mind of all the fans. But she can be back with her husband in Japan or whatever they need to do. But yeah, I think if they can give her enough money and give her enough, time and space away, that she would be such a huge addition.
Yeah, I think I'm curious if that might be a ulterior motive for her to leave, and it's not just that she wants to go back to Japan with her husband.
Right.
I can only hope, right?
Fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah. All right. So, you got anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up here this week?
No. Like I said, a little bit of a bummer show, but the most bummer show from AEW is still better than almost anything else. So can't complain too much.
All right, cool. So thanks for listening and watching, everybody. If you're over on the podcast, be sure to head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe over there. We do these shows live, so you can join us in the chat and throw in your 2 cents. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can get this as a podcast on all your favorite podcast apps. I'm also looking for some more help when it comes to New Japan. So if you're looking to do some co-hosting duties for New Japan, shoot me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. And of course, we want your feedback, questions, suggestions, discussion topics, anything like that. You can either leave them down in the comments below on the YouTube videos or shoot them to eric@thatswrestling.com so we can have a bit of a mailbag section so we can get out any of those thoughts. There's also a Discord you can join. The link is in the show notes and the description. And I think that is it for now. I'm guessing the next AEW show will probably be on Sunday the 23rd, but I'll have to figure out who's going to be hosting that. So and as far as New Japan goes, we probably won't be having another show until probably the 31st or the 1st of September. So that's where those go. So, yeah, I think that's it. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time on That's Wrestling. See you later, guys.